Episode 2 is nuts. Any story is good in which the Doctor's out of his depth, and the wheels come off on this one.
Oh my gosh, I was so excited.
It's so nuts, and like no other episode of this show that I'd ever seen. It sort of made me think I have to do this.
Maestro was a powerful force to be reckoned with.
What I'm getting to do on the set of Doctor Who is basically my entire actor fantasy checklist checked off in one episode.
Oh, no way!
It's the Devil's Chord, and this is central Cardiff that we have turned into Abbey Road.
We found a street in Cardiff that looked reasonably good, sourced some period vehicles that matched the ones in the picture, and then at some point that street becomes a digital matte painting. So we put a big blue screen all the way across the street, so the deep background is a visual effect.
It's like the album cover! Oh, I remember the best time! Oh, look at the cars!
Oh, come on! We had to paint out the yellow lines and then paint in the black lines. There are angles in those scenes where if you pan the camera just ever so slightly to the left, the whole thing falls apart and you see a whole lot of modern cars. So we had to say, we will see that building, we won't see that building.
So we locked off all these roads, and we had this one day to do all the stuff that takes place on Abbey Road.
That day was one of our worst, most rainy days.
We left the last scene to the very end of the day because our DOP wanted it to be sunset. I spent a lot of time on the weather app feeling quite anxious, and it was Wales at its finest. The gutters were overflowing, everyone was drenched.
We were staying there in the pouring rain, thinking, what the hell are we going to do? And I had a pretty good idea, which is, hang on a minute, 3 scenes ago, they were dancing in the rain. What if they just keep their umbrellas? And then we staged that scene in the rain because we had no choice.
Me and Shoots were watching the scene from Big when they play the piano in the store. I don't think we did it as well, but it just sort of makes you think, God, I'm on Doctor Who. See, Mark?
I think everyone comes to this episode expecting the Beatles in 1963, but we start in 1925. And if you know your Doctor Who, that'll ring a little bell when the Toymaker arrived in 1925. I think that's setting the store for the gods to be loose in that.
Can't you play something more exciting, sir?
There is one thing you might like.
It's called the Devil's Chord. Does that sound exciting?
When you hear the words the Devil's Chord, you just think there's a Doctor Who title. They say it was banned by the church in the Middle Ages. That might not be true, but that's the kind of the legend the Devil's Chord has accrued.
We're shooting the first scene of the episode, my first appearance. If someone wants to just lift that up for me, I'm going in.
This is what you do for a living.
Best job in the world. We get a little glimpse at just how powerful Maestro is. And now his song is sung. You know, it feels very Faustian. That's the right use of Faustian.
We needed 2 pianos, one that worked for real and one with no strings or anything, in, so we could put Jinx inside it. In earlier versions of the script, there were more complicated, more visual effects heavy versions of Maestro getting born. But in the end, once we'd met Jinx, she was so wonderful that we really wanted to just look at her and not at sort of visual effects versions of her.
Luckily, I have quite a bit of music training, but I'm much more of a singer than an instrumentalist, so there was I was practicing conducting a lot. I would like to get a little of me actually conducting the music. Then I asked for a baton. You don't call someone Maestro and not give them a baton, so. And you, Mr. Timothy Drake, you're a genius.
The gentleman who plays Timothy, he had a sort of family connection to Doctor Who, which Russell was delighted to find out.
My dad wrote the incidental music for several stories during the 1980s, so one Tom Baker, one Colin Baker, and lots of Peter Davisons. I was very excited. I've been a Doctor Who fan all my life. Proper one, card carrying. I think it's pre-titles. So I'm done and dusted before even the dum-de-dum starts.
That poor man dies horribly in that room, all alone, and that's just the start of the problems. I love that opening. I have never had so many phone calls and conversations and emails about the look of Maestro. And actually, we worried too much. We should have just handed it over to our Claire, our makeup designer, Pam, our costume designer, with Jinx herself, and said, off you go, because they just came up with actual magic.
The chorus of ancient songs calls me Maestro.
After extensive meetings with Russell and Jane, we've had a direction. At that point, Pam and I went away in our respective trucks and started putting images together. So I ordered 6 identical wigs, did a practice run on 3 of them, which eventually became our stunt double wigs. It was a real labour of love. I don't think I've ever prepped so hard.
The amazing designers, Claire and Pam, they reached out to me months ago and showed me all the inspiration. I was just like, yep, when I heard about this character, this is exactly where I would go too.
It was a nice big decision to give Maestro 3 costumes. We kind of early on thought we're mad if they stay in the same costume.
The first outfit was this piano outfit. There's piano keys sort of printed. We had them printed on the tail of her coat. I wanted to make sure that when they come down a building, this sort of massive drop sort of comes down. So it was a sort of dramatic thing. And then the idea of it all being black and white, like a conductor. The second outfit Maestro had, we decided to put them in a dress. And the idea was non-binary character. We've had them in a male outfit, let's have a dress in there. I found a picture of somebody wearing this amazing dress, which had this sort of sculptural neckline. And I thought, okay, let's do something along those lines, but I'll make it bigger. Again, big hem on this dress with all these sort of curvy bits on it. And we did it in a sort of purple, which is a sort of royal colour, which I like.
I'm going solo.
And then the final outfit was a kind of nod to the toy maker. It's like a band outfit again. It had lots of frogging on it, but we made it in this sort of rich blue. It has gold braid that goes around every single circumference of these massive circles, and they took a week to sew on. They were great fun to make. If you were going to make them yourself, give yourself 3 weeks.
Come with me.
There's a chance in this episode to do a sequence we've been trying to do in Doctor Who since 2005. And the programme once did this many, many years ago in a story called The Pyramids of Mars. And finally it was a chance for Ruby to say, well, the Earth can't be destroyed in 1963 because I'm from 2024. And the Doctor takes her to the present day, which has been ruined.
I remember there was a backdrop of ruined London and it was really surreal to see. I don't live in London, but I remember Shoots was like, oh my gosh, that's my home. Then how am I still alive? Why don't I fade away?
Because of me.
It was challenging. I think, interestingly, the trickiest part of it are the transitions in and out of that scene. Suddenly you go from one place to another, and then you cut back to Ruby and the Doctor, and the ash that's been falling turns into ticker tapes.
You get a very real moment of seeing a destroyed Earth, and then it becomes a surreal stage show. Maestro puts on a show of the destruction of the Earth.
The sound of a nuclear winter.
That was an amazing scene on the page. It's this incredible cabaret scene, basically. So we had to kind of think about how to build this set that was both magical but also vast.
How did you enter this world?
A genius.
Jamie worked out how to light it in a sort of really theatrical way with big follow spots. So when the Doctor moves forward to Maestro, his spot goes with him.
I get stronger and stronger until I can reach out and steal the music of the spheres.
It was quite hard making something that was big enough so in the wide you see the TARDIS and you see Maestro at the piano, 4 spotlights, and then we've actually extended above that to make it feel like they're in a sort of void, I suppose.
And you might be bright and hot and timey-wimey. But genius? Oh, honey, I don't think so. Sorry to keep harping on!
A new thing for me on this episode was puppeteering large objects. I'd never done that on an episode before, so the puppeteers and I thought quite a lot about how best to do that. We tried a few different techniques.
It's quite complicated to get a piano to spin round 3 times and then bash through a door.
What we've got is we've got some very strong chord, and we're kind of winding the piano up and then pulling it really fast in the direction that it wants to go.
My philosophy, I think, is that you need to shoot as much real stuff as you can and then use the digital tools to enhance and refine what you've done on set.
It is a really quick boost of energy in this area.
Yeah.
Set and action.
The same applies with the sequence where the Doctor and Ruby get eaten by the instruments.
So we shot it tight enough so we didn't see the floor, and I could get nice big thick crash mats in there. So we shot him getting pulled across the floor, going up towards the drum. We made a little tiny ramp as if he's going into the drum, and what they do, they're putting the drum in on post so it looks like he goes and disappears inside the drum.
Having Jinx on set was just an amazing experience. She embodied Maestro like I can't imagine anyone else ever doing. And we got to do some cool stuff as well. I mean, she trapped me in a drum, which was lots of fun, and I smashed out through the power of my afro.
This is what you call a reference puppet, I guess. So it's an element in this show that is going to be CGI. We hold it in camera so that the visual effects can do their reference on this particular puppet.
Those little sequences, I mean, they're so good. They look so real, but they were really, really fiddly to do.
The one who waits is almost here!
There was always going to be this massive song. The whole episode really rests on this big release of emotion.
Here we go. Camera set and playback.
There's always a twist, there's always a twist, there's always a twist at the end. There's always a twist, there's always a twist, there's always a twist at the end.
You want the storyline and all of the music to be moving in the same direction. All of the characters waiting for this moment where joyfully music erupts back into their life.
It's so explosive at the end, it's so celebratory that again I want the screen to burst, I want that fourth wall to start breaking down. I wanted Shirley Ballas to burst into it. I want someone like Johannes Radeby to be there just to make us laugh. You're meant to laugh and you're meant to sing along and you're meant to join in, but that's what a song is. That's what the joy of this moment is.
Murray's Twist is about 3.5 minutes and it takes place over 7 different locations. So we had to be very specific. There was no kind of going over or changing it. That had to be very rigid on the day. Murray and I were in constant communication for ages very early in my process. Murray had to do heaps of work in pre-production. So it was about having a very detailed plan that involved me and the director of photography and Russell, the composer and the choreographer all on the same page.
I always say that the end of the twist, there's one good thing that can't be missed. Little dance, 'cause we know what's best, 'cause we're smart girls from the north.
The song was always called There's Always a Twist at the End, so we want it to be possible to twist to. It's a little bit fast for a twist, but that gives it a slight edge of instability, which is something that's quite often desirable on Doctor Who. You want to push things so that they feel like they're about to collapse. Gives you a thrill when that's happening. Throwing the kitchen sink at a Doctor Who episode isn't new. If we haven't thrown the kitchen sink by the time the theme music comes in at the end of an episode, then we have to just go back and look for kitchen sink opportunities. That's our MO, really, in the music department.
I just think the more you can bring the walls down on these things, the more open and free the whole show is. You can't say you can't do that on Doctor Who. If ever you sit there saying you can't do that on Doctor Who, that's what I want to do.
Nice short chaos. Oh my God, you got smashed in. I said again, so wet. It's gonna have a bit of one.